Hi, Rashmi. You're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself. Okay.
Now, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Were you playing with me?
No, seriously. It said the host has to unmute you a couple of times.
Okay.
Let me check.
Hi, Priya.
Hi. Hi, Rashmi.
So,
Hi.
How are you?
Very
I thought
good.
we will check in. And were you there in the previous session, Rashmi? Were you able to join?
No, I couldn't. I was here.
Okay, no problem. We'll go live in few seconds
Yeah.
and look forward to the session.
Thank you, Shiba.
All right. Are we live? Basha? Okay.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. So after this absolutely amazing heart-opening session we had for the heart chakra, which hopefully has led a lot of us to make choices that lead us from a fear to heart, fear to freedom. And as if that wasn't enough, now we have this power-packed session on throat chakra, the Vishuddhi, which is a center of expression, clarity, and influence. In this session, Rashmi Shetty invites us to reflect on how we use our voice, figuratively and literally, and when we hold it back. Priya Nijhara, a business and brand strategist with over 2 decades of experience across advertising, media, retail, and licensing. She is known to be a collaborative leader at heart and deeply invested in developing high-performing teams. She'll be holding the space for us to get connected deeper with our inner voice as Rashmi Shetty takes us into the depth of her signature voice coaching chakra framework. Over to you, Priya.
Thank you, Shiba. Thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the conversational session on the Vishuddhi chakra, also known as the throat chakra. I'll start with setting some context for the session following from what Shiba just said. In leadership, which a lot of us find ourselves in that role, in leadership, clarity of communication today is not a soft skill. It's a core leadership capability. In today's complex world and workspace that we all operate in, the leaders who stand out are not necessarily the ones who are the loudest, but the ones that are the clearest. Those who can articulate direction, influence stakeholders, and command the room with authenticity. When we go back to our ancient wisdom traditions, leadership didn't begin with authority or titles or designations. It began with expression. And the Vishuddhi chakra or the throat chakra is that energy center of voice, truth, and authentic expression. It's where thought becomes word, intention becomes impact, and inner clarity turns into outward leadership. Our speaker for this session is Rashmi Shetty, but before I even introduce Rashmi, I wanted to ask her, we hear so much about leadership, do this, do that, so many things that are always told to us to become a good leader. What really does it mean to lead with your voice? That's the topic of today, but what does it really mean to lead with your voice in today's workplace?
Hi, Priya. Thank you so much. And hi, Shiba. Thanks for the introduction. Honestly, when we say lead with the voice, somewhere it is the connection to the self. And I'd like to quote a verse from the Bhagavad Gita from chapter 7, which is the Jnana Vijnana Yoga chapter, where he talks about knowledge and experience. And there is this particular verse where he says, Rasoham apsu kaunteya prabhasmi shashi suryayoho pranava sarva vedeshu shabdah ke paurusham rishu, which is, I am the taste and water, O son of Kunti. and the radiance of the sun and the moon. I am the sacred syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in the ether and the ability in the humans. So, of the Panchabhutas, the ether, and that is exactly where you have sound and voice coming. So, we have thoughts, myriad of thoughts, millions of thoughts that go through our minds. But when you talk about leadership, it's the clarity with which these thoughts are expressed in the voice that we are blessed with. So, leading with voice has a lot of elements that come into the whole thing. And why exactly do we love leaders who communicate well is what this session's also going to be about. So, Priya, hope that gives a good taster for you.
Fabulous. I mean, fabulous. What a great way to start, especially with the shloka from the Gita. And thank you for explaining that, because a lot of people would not have got it otherwise. But yes, the point you made about clarity. To introduce you, I'll just give a little introduction to you, Rashmi, before we begin, because there is a lot of experience that you hold that brings the voice to the center of everything that you do. Guys, Rashmi is an award-winning voice coach. She's won multiple awards at a national and international level, scripting radio shows and radio narration, a foundation that I'm sure shaped her deep understanding of voice as influence. Today, she works with leaders, change makers, and creators to help them discover the power of their voice, not just as a communication tool, but as a leadership asset. She has a signature coaching framework, very aptly called the Voice, VOICE, which we will talk about today, which enables individuals to speak with clarity, confidence, and authenticity, whether on stage, in boardrooms, or just in life. Her belief, in her own words, is simple and profound. When you find your voice, you naturally command the moment and the room. So let's look forward to you commanding the room here, Rashmi. Welcome to this session, absolutely. I thought we could start with maybe you telling us a little bit about your journey and what really got you into the space of being a voice coach, which seems like a very niche area, but really, and how did you go about strengthening your Vishuddhi?
Thank you. Priya, when I look back as the little Rashmi that I was such a shy person that if I'm talking to one girl, and I studied in an all-girls school in college, when I was talking to one girl and somebody else joins the conversation, I forget what I'm talking to this particular girl. So I come from that space of I don't even know what to call it. It is, I don't know whether it's introversion. It is just that I was so insecure to share what I was feeling like. I just didn't like the limelight. And if there were 3, 4 people waiting for my opinion, I would just shy down, bog down with just the pressure of whether they would love what I say, agree to what I say, or whether they would disagree. So it was that space that I came from. And it was my final year in college where I stood for election. God knows what gave me the courage. Here I was not able to face one girl. And there my class rep came in and she said, Rashmi, there's nobody from the English department who's standing for election. So why don't you stand for the position of cultural secretary? And this is a story I'll never forget and I've shared it in multiple fora because I feel that this is where many of us should be very clear about experimenting very early on in life. And it's not that the perfect stage would come for you or the perfect place would come for you, but it's all about finding your perfect moment in those imperfections. And that's exactly what happened. I went on stage, nobody knew my name. And like I told you, I just go cold feet when I look at people. And here there were so many girls staring at me in the auditorium, and I just forgot my speech. And I was standing at the same time so glad that I'd carried my speech, but it was so crumpled out of nervousness that when I reached the podium and ironed out the speech and I looked at it, 2 big drops fell on the paper and smudged the entire sheet. So I was blank up here and blank down there. I still don't know what I said to complete that moment. But that was the moment that changed it all. I ran backstage and I cried my heart out. And I think sometimes, there's this beautiful quote which says that breakdowns are breakthroughs. That breakdown, and in coaching, it's a very powerful statement. So that breakdown became my breakthrough. And at that moment, if somebody said that speaking and communication is going to be your forte, I would have cried. I would have really, really cried even louder because it would have been like, what are you saying? And life transformed because that moment shifted a lot in me. I'm so glad today that I went there and became so vulnerable at that point of time. And that's where the journey with the self began. My friend who was next to me gave me water and then told me that, Rashmi, you know what? Stand in front of the mirror and talk to your reflection. So that's the first exercise I would suggest to anybody and
Wow.
everybody, that just use the mirror as your biggest space of practice. Look into the mirror every day. And Swami Vivekananda had also said something on those lines, where he said that if you're not going to spend time with yourself, you lose out experiencing speaking to one of the most intelligent persons in the world. So that self connect happens literally in front of the mirror. Stand in front of the mirror every day and talk to your reflection. The day the two eyes staring back at you make you comfortable, no pair of eyes can intimidate you. So that was my first lesson with understanding how to be comfortable with who you are. And subsequently, I went for classes, the different experiences through my post graduation, and then on, the stage was my space of operation. So as we moved in life, so many things happened, marriage, kids, and then I entered a space where I didn't even know what life had in store for me. And that's another thing I always tell everyone I meet, that when you don't know what to do, trust life. Because life's plans are way bigger than what you can dream of or manifest. So life has a way bigger plan. And that's exactly what happened, because there was a workshop on voice. I walk into that workshop and I was the oldest in the room, a mother of two at that point, clueless what to do with myself and whatever I had done till then. And the man who organized the workshop, he noticed me because I asked questions at every session. I was the oldest in the room. Most of the kids were just out of college. So everyone noticed me because I was asking questions. And he said, why don't you try All India Radio? I said, for what? He said, they have an FM station and they're looking for RJs. And I was like, really? RJing at 34 was not even on my list of what to do. And life had a bigger plan. And that's where I found my calling. I went in, and 34 was the cutoff. I was right, juxtapositioned correctly to be at that point, which altered everything. It was my decade at All India Radio's FM Rainbow in Bangalore as an RJ, where I discovered you can connect to people without actually seeing them. And you cannot fake for long on air. You have to be yourself. So that element of being comfortable with who you are, completely accepting yourself, and speaking from your heart, your authentic self, is where connections truly happen, was where my journey with the voice began.
Wow. Wow, that was fabulous. I mean, inspiring at so many levels. You were spewing wisdom quotes at every juncture, and I must say, very, very inspiring for anybody in the room who's an introvert, for anybody in the room who thinks that they were shy and they can't do this. What a transition. I mean, congratulations on the journey, really. And really, I mean, like you said, breakdowns are breakthroughs definitely for you at the age of 34.
Yeah.
Also, somewhere it makes you realize that no, nothing is impossible, really,
Yeah.
if you really
Yeah.
think about it. It's the stories we tell ourselves, and the voice that we speak about. But I love what you said about standing in front of the mirror. It's a very tangible tool, a very tangible thing that all of us could do to sort of start getting to know ourselves a
Yeah.
little better.
Yeah, that's very true, Priya. And so I'll just take you through a small exercise, okay? The
Okay.
beach mantra for the throat chakra is hum. hum. Okay. So what I would suggest you do is maybe place your right hand on your throat. Okay.
Okay,
This is
all
peak
of
of
us
the
should do
throat.
this right now.
Yeah, you can just do
Okay,
it. We'll just take a minute for it, just
guys,
to
if
make
you're
you
our,
feel.
I'll just tell the audience, guys, just go along with the flow. I think we're having some very interesting experiences here. So if your videos are off, keep them off, no problem. But let's go with the flow with Rashmi. Okay, so keeping
Yeah.
my hand
So,
on the throat.
yeah, the right hand on your throat chakra, the left hand maybe on your chest. And what you can do is whenever you're doing any kind of meditation, okay, just make sure your spine is erect. So automatically your shoulder becomes erect. Your feet are firmly placed on the ground, or you're sitting cross-legged, however you're sitting, but sit in a very comfortable position where your spine is erect. And maybe the other hand, your left hand can go around your stomach or your diaphragm area. And all you can do when you're doing any kind of meditation or any kind of exercise like this with the breath, just close your eyes. That's your biggest stimulant of distraction. Just close your eyes and start simple, okay? Just take a deep breath in and say, hum. And then release your breath and open your eyes. There is no particular times you have to do this in the day. You can do it whenever you feel like, and you'll realize there is a calmness that automatically sets in. Okay. And this is where even the basic, simplest form of Brahmari can be included. Okay. Brahmari is an exercise that if you see, I've read the story. I don't know how far it's true, but it's logical, so I buy it. Where our ancient yogis, if you see, most of our yogasanas come from nature, inspired by nature. And it is said few yogis were on the shores of a pond and they noticed lotuses in full bloom. And they noticed that one particular bee had gone into a lotus and it was so lost in the beauty of the flower that it didn't realize that the flower, the lotus or the water lily, both have this capacity to bloom and close and bloom and close for 3 days. Okay. So this bee was so lost in the beauty of the flower that it forgot this flower is going to close in a while. And as the flower closed, the distracted bee did not realize that it was getting arrested within the flower. So once the flower was fully closed, it realized it couldn't come out. And when these yogis sitting on the shore close their eyes and listen to the sound of the bee, which is that buzzing sound that comes, they realized it has a very calming effect on the mind as well. And from there was the inspiration for Brahmari, which is also the sound of the bee, which is a very beautiful exercise you can do for your throat chakra or to calm yourself down. An exercise that is recommended both that you do before you go to bed and as soon as you wake up. And we are not doing the Ashtanga Brahmari in Hatha Yoga where you close every possible entry, but the simplest form. And like I said, for everything, your spine erect. And maybe for a variation, you can keep your forefinger at the cartilage, which is the entry point of the ear. Just go up and down there while you're doing it. But the technique of doing it is take a deep breath in and stay with and some after a point you can't hear the sound, but you can feel a tightness at your core. Just hold on to that tightness. And when you're feeling uncomfortable, open your mouth slowly to allow the breath to go out. Okay. The variation in the hum sound comes when you keep your elbows like this alongside your shoulders and go in and out. So the buzzing sound of the bee is what you can hear. Again, we'll just do it once to get a kind of an experiential feel for it. But what I feel if you do it repeatedly is that calmness when you are about to begin to speak, or the way you look at things around you. And during COVID times, this was one of the most popular exercises because they realized repeated doing of Brahmari leads to release of nitric oxide in the brain, which leads to overall wellness. Okay, a simple exercise, but in the long term, you'll realize helps you stay calm and also helps you speak from your diaphragm rather than your throat. Okay.
Fabulous.
So
I mean, I'm already feeling very calm. So let's do this one more time. Guys, everyone join in, please.
yeah.
And
So
we'll move on from there then.
yeah. So
Okay.
just close your eyes like always. Take a deep breath in. If you want, you can keep your hand at the cartilage of your ear. If you don't want, you can just stay with your hands on your thighs, opened, however you're comfortable. And just start. Take a deep breath in and just doing this twice, thrice, 4 times in a day. And as many times, like I said, the only thing you have to remember when doing any kind of breath exercises, not immediately after food or as soon as you drink any kind of liquid, even water, give it a break before you get on to do any kind of breathing exercise. That's the only disclaimer you have to take
Yeah,
care
got
of.
it. No,
But
great, good, superb. So, and this really helps strengthen the overall, the Vishuddhi chakra as well, and the
yes,
overall
yes,
calmness. I definitely felt
yeah,
calmness. So for sure,
yeah.
that's an instant relief. So again, for everybody watching, I guess we've already got two techniques going. Speak to yourself in the mirror, watch yourself in the mirror. And this is a very instant thing. I think for anybody before they enter a presentation or if there's any kind of
Yeah.
nervousness, I feel like this is an instant thing that we could do.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so
So
much for that.
yeah, so the more you start doing this, the more you appear calm while you speak. Like just think this chakra, which is located at such a strategic point, okay? It connects the body below and the mind above so beautifully. And that's why I love calling this the bridge, because this is associated with communication, self-expression. That's what we do from here, and speaking the truth. There are times when you want to say something and something holds you back. You are wanting to share, you're super confident, but when you get to the moment, you're just not able to get the words out. You feel a kind of a block. These are indicators that your Vishuddhi chakra is blocked. And when you can speak clearly, speak absolutely, I'm not saying flawlessly, but just go with the flow and able to express whatever you have as your thoughts, you know you have a balanced Vishuddhi. And the way it connects your thoughts to the words that you're using and how you're expressing it with the emotions and your body language is why this chakra is somewhere key. Shuddhi means pure. Vishuddhi means maybe V is ultra. So ultra pure is
Ultra
what
pure.
this
Nice.
this
Love it.
chakra. I heard talk by Sri M, and that's how he described it as ultra pure. So he says that could be the way you can describe the Vishuddhi. So you can, when you have the fear of speaking at certain moments, you know there is an imbalance. So a simple question, you can just think, everyone here can just sit back and think of a leader whose words resonated deeply with you. What is it that made their voice compelling? Just give it a thought. And there are so many interviews online thanks to social media today. As much as it is a distraction, it's also a place where we can learn a lot and meet a lot of people we otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to listen to. So when you have any particular leader you've loved speaking to, or you have heard and fallen completely in awe of how they are expressing themselves, understand that it is the Vishuddhi chakra that's doing the magic. And it is easy to remove the imbalance that is there. All you need to do is focus. And Brahmari is one
Is
exercise.
this more about you?
Sorry, does somebody have a question? Questions are most welcome, guys. Okay, I think we'll move on. Please put your questions for sure in the chat box and we'll take it as we go along. We may not wait till the end. Rashmi will also prefer, I think, as we go along.
Yeah. Please, when I say something, if you have any question, please feel free to, can they unmute or should the host
They
unmute?
can, but I think just from a text standpoint, it's easier if they put it in the chat box and then we can get them to unmute. There's somebody whose hand is up. Okay, let's take a quick question here.
Sure.
It says Prithvi Innovation Awards. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It is lovely hearing whatever is being delivered. Thank you so much for this session, first of all. Myself, Anuradha from Prithvi Innovations. So my simple question is, when we are talking about the Vishuddhi Chakra, तो जो thyroid gland होता है, so is there a deep connection, like
Yes.
when you have the thyroid problem and things like that?
Yes.
So physically, that could be a symptom that our chakra is not balanced, or they are two different things altogether, medically and spiritually, that the connection between the two. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, so anything in and around this area is connected to the Vishuddhi chakra. So thyroid is connected to the Vishuddhi chakra. And if you go back and check the history of people who have had thyroid issues, you'll realize that expression has been a challenge for them. They were not able to share what they were feeling like. And that is the reason that if you see thyroid hyper or hypo comes from suppressed stress. Okay. And it starts showing up much later. So you don't have to have an issue with the thyroid to understand it. But if you're not able to communicate or you're suppressing due to different situations in your life, it's because your Vishuddhi is somewhere blocked.
Okay, just one more thing I would like to add on. Thank you so much for sharing this. But there is a little conflict which I see here, because I myself as a person, it's not about boasting about myself, but I am very, like, people definitely appreciate the way I communicate and I'm able to express myself very well. But unfortunately, I do have a thyroid problem. So that is why I raised this question, that as far as the communication is concerned and expressing and emoting your feelings, your thoughts. So I'm also like, people really appreciate, and what happened with you also happened with me. Like they asked me to go and like apply for the All India Radio. So that is how I also took the course in RJ, and I was the oldest person in the whole class, like you. And everybody really appreciated, though they were all younger to me. So that's what I was wondering while you were talking about the thyroid gland. So then, so even if the physical condition says that you are suffering, like you are having this thyroid problem, but if otherwise your communication is fine and you are doing well as far as expression is concerned, so still is there some kind of a, like, how do we see this kind of a difference?
Yeah,
Which
thanks, Anu, for the question. One very important element is just because we are able to express doesn't mean we don't have suppressed emotions. Okay. The suppressed emotions could be something which is long term, which before even we have identified it, has stayed on, whether as a child. And this is where, when we go back to see where we come from, a lot of it is dependent on it. Suppressed emotions over a period of time in particular areas of your life and relationship also lead a lot of issues with the thyroid. So maybe today you're able to communicate yourself, but when it came to a certain point in life, because I can speak from my own experience, my mother had a thyroid issue, and she was a very forthright person expressing herself. But it's only later I understood, as I was talking to her and discussing this, that she said that there was a part where she was in charge of me and my sister. My dad had moved out of the country on a career shift, and my brother had moved to another city, to Pilani, to study engineering. So here she was from Karnataka, but settled in Chennai. That's where I grew up, in a city that's not her own, but taking care of two growing up girls. And she didn't have a space to express that fear. She was very clear with whatever she wanted to say, but no space to keep that unexpressed thought and stress, which later added up and showed as her hypothyroid problem, started with hypo and it was shifting between the two. So that's where I believe that the thyroid and communication are connected. So
Thank
she
you so
did
much.
go into yoga as well.
Thank you so much. That was
Thank
quite
you.
enlightening.
Thanks, Anuradha. Wonderful questions, and really applaud you as well that you've also been able to recognize that while you may have a medical condition, there are ways to sort of overcome it as well. And over a period of time, keep an eye on that is probably what Rashmi is also saying.
Yes.
But really wonderful questions. And I think to your earlier point, Rashmi, when you was talking about, think of leaders or people who've made speeches and who you think are what are they doing right, how are they getting the ones who inspire you? And honestly, the one that came to my mind was Obama. But the one thing that I could gather, and I'd request people to also put it in the chat box who they think is probably a good speaker. There's a certain calmness in his voice. There's a certain calm, what they say in Hindi, therav.
Yeah.
There's a certain calmness in his voice, and he delivers the thing very impactfully because you know that there's confidence behind it. So how does the voice and confidence get connected? I mean, confidence comes from so many things. We hear about posture, we hear about how you sit, we in the workplace or as a leader. How does the voice connect with confidence so directly?
It's how exactly you're feeling at that point. Many people ask me, why is the voice so important for a leader? Well, all of us have millions of thoughts, like I said before, but it's how we deliver the thoughts that make the difference. Okay. Sometimes in a room, what you express and a similar thought or thoughts on the same line when expressed by somebody else has a different impact. Have you seen that? It is just because of the way that person delivered the
Yeah, it could
line.
be the
Or,
same words, but they
yeah,
say
yeah.
different. True.
Yeah. So confidence, or how do we assess if somebody is confident, is how they speak. Like you said about Obama, for example, he uses three very beautiful things that I consider important when you speak. One is pause, the other one is pace, and he plays brilliantly with silence. Okay, these are the three things that you constantly have to understand are very crucial in how you sound.
Fabulous.
So
Pause, pace,
pace,
and silence.
yeah.
Okay, lovely.
So the way you pause while you're speaking, pause is important both for the speaker and the audience member. Why? Because when you pause appropriately, you are better understood. So when you say something important and you pause, you're giving time for your listener to assimilate what you just said and to yourself to understand how much you expressed. When you're speaking to a room of people or more than one, automatically reduce your pace. Don't speak like you speak one on one, because when you pace out your words, you don't have the challenge of using fillers. Okay, most of us are prone to using fillers because all of us think faster than we speak. And that gap between our thought process and our expression is what we want to fill. And that's why the word filler comes in. Okay, so the ahs, the oohs, the actually, basically, you know what I mean. All that comes because this is moving way faster than how we are expressing. So if we go slower, automatically we are able to keep the pace between this and how we are expressing. And that filler coming in to fill the gap doesn't happen because the gaps are intentional. And therefore, you are not stressed to finish at the same speed with which you're thinking. What is the idea? What if I forget what I'm thinking and I miss it out? And that's why some of us end up speaking really fast. So if we work on our pause, if we take a lot of care with the pace, and the other thing is silence. Silence is once you've delivered something, wait intentionally to see if there are any doubts or questions, because you can't expect people to move with you as you're speaking. We are today in a very distracted world. And therefore, when we are talking to people, some thought that you say, some fact that you share, some sentence that you quote can trigger some other thoughts in the audience. So the way we use our silence is to allow them to come back to the moment. Okay, so when you use silence well and strategically, you end up coming across as a confident speaker because your voice doesn't seem like flustered, or you don't seem in a hurry to share everything within a limited time, because you're the only one in the room who knows your script. Nobody else knows your script. So silence can be used very, very strategically as well.
Fabulous. I think you've just given us a formula for confidence, which is pause plus space plus silence. And I must also say, in the same breath, I think you're very well illustrating it as we go along in this conversation itself, because you are pausing for impact. You've got the pace going, and I'm learning a lot as I'm going along. So thank you for that. I thought I'll just ask you a little bit about your voice framework and, the
Yes.
way when you go about coaching, because there are a lot of people in the audience who are coaches as well. And when you have somebody on the other side, the coachee is somebody who's low on Vishuddhi, or the Vishuddhi is blocked. And what are the ways in which you work with clients that you unlock the Vishuddhi through the voice framework? If you could just take us through that a bit.
Okay, I work with this framework at 3 levels, but at each level, the framework is something else because I love playing with acronyms. And voice was a word that got associated with me in my coaching fraternity here in Bangalore, that whenever there was anything to do with moderation or hosting during COVID times, since the first India conclave happened in Bangalore and I hosted it here. So automatically, when there was anything to do with hosting or moderating, they would say, okay, ask Rashmi, she has a nice voice. So that word stuck. And during COVID is when I sat down and I heard Marshall Goldsmith in one webinar where he said that as a coach, remember, this is your time to give. See what you have with which you can serve your clients. And that stuck with me post the webinar. And I was like, okay, so what do I have that I can give? And that's where the question went deeper within, because we were all in a reflective space, whether by choice or forcefully. We had a lot of time to see our lives and reflect on it. So it was at that point that I started connecting the dots, like Steve Jobs said, looking backwards. And I realized voice was my space, a word that easily got associated with me. I was like, why can't I use it as my coaching framework? And that is where the first level is the elements of the voice, where I coach around the volume, the oscillation, the inflection, the clarity, and the emotions with which you speak. So these are the basic elements which you need. The second level is where I'll take you all deep, where it is more now on your leadership elements. So it is vulnerability. What or when did I share something honestly and feel that I built trust with people around me? So sharing your personal stories, sharing your personal failure. When have you as a leader done that? Because when you become or you take that leadership position, you are looked at with a spotlight. People don't see you as somebody who has fallen and gotten up as well. And it's important for the leader. So when I coach leaders, especially these senior leaders, I tell them share your failure stories, because people are already seeing you in the position that they really aspire one day to be in, but they don't know your journey. So be vulnerable to share your failure stories. And this I tell everyone. The moment you share your failure story is where people see you as human and they instantly connect. We all love the stories of underdogs. Why? Because the moment we understand it's all about getting up, that makes the difference, you find that inspiration or motivation. The next one is objectivity. So the first leadership quality is vulnerability, second one is objectivity. Why objectivity? Because human beings are emotional beings. And as leaders, you're emotionally connected to your team. It's very, very important that when you are in a leadership position, that you zoom out to see the big picture. only then can you be objective. So you can step back and first be objective on your own assessment and say, when did some kind of a calm clarity help me navigate a very tough situation? What did I do at that point of time? And if these questions we ourselves individually start navigating through, we'll understand each of these pointers that I'm speaking about. How did I get through that tough situation? Usually when we are in situations, we are in the situation emotionally too, but because we are zooming in. But when we zoom out, we see the big picture, and that allows us to be objective, bereft of emotions. I'm not saying we are not emotionally connected, but again, a concept from the Gita, detached attachment, where you know you're attached, but you need to be detached in order to see the big picture. And the best example for me is the lotus. In the Gita, the phrase is Padma Patram Ivambasi, be like the lotus leaf. And why? Because the lotus leaf is in water, but it has this beautiful viscous surface or hair-like structures on itself that water doesn't remain as water, but as droplets. So that the moment there's a slight breeze, the leaf moves and the water falls off. Because the moment it drowns in water, it rots and it dies. And like it is said, no mud, no lotus. Our lives also are like that. Each of the challenges we face are those mud that we need in order to bloom as the beautiful lotus that we all are in our lives. So even the thought of wanting to be a huge influencer or wanting to make a big impact is something that after a point you realize you'll outgrow, because all you know is one is people forget and they move on. So when you are in conversation, make sure you're making yourself as truly possible that the world can see you as. That's it. So that's where the vulnerability aspect comes in, because when you are objective, you're not very result oriented. You're more process driven. And when you live in the moment, you are able to make less mistakes rather than be process result oriented and worry about the outcome and the validation. And when you do that, you don't focus on your process because you're looking at the end result. And as a result, you become emotionally driven and not objective. When you are process driven, you become more objective. So your tendency to make mistakes are a lot less, and you falter a lot less because you're very focused in the now. And being in the now is what helps you as a leader. The third one is I, with V is vulnerability, O is objectivity, I stands for coming across as informed. Okay. Informed is very important in today's world because everyone has access to information. And time is our biggest constraint. So how do you say little and yet say it all? And that's where vocabulary comes into play. Your choice of words, very crucial as a leader. How do you say less and say it all? So how are you working on your own self? Let's say, how are you building that prep for yourself? Because when you're prepped up, your confidence is visible for everyone to see and experience. So one crucial element there is vocabulary building. And how do you do that? Just listen consciously to words whose meanings you know, but you don't have it as part of your everyday vocabulary. Note it down in some book and consciously build it into your emails and conversation the next few days. So much so that it becomes a part of your vocabulary. And English, in comparison to Sanskrit and Indian languages, is a limited language, not like Tehra. What do you call Tehra in English? Right? So there are pointers where you can't find the exact translation in English. But when you use the right words to context that you are speaking to your team with, and you're not groping for the words or speaking a lot more than you should when you know the precise word, you create a lot more impact. And therefore, you are concise and clear, which is coming across as an informed person. Okay, so that works with your parallel building of your vocabulary. And the C stands for compassion. Now, compassion is the next level of empathy. Now, normally, if you would ask what is empathy, people would say getting into somebody else's shoes. And there is an act for that. Before you get into somebody else's shoes, you have to remove your own shoes. You can't wear your shoes and get into somebody else's shoes. So the act of removing your shoe to get into somebody else's shoe is where the compassionate leader comes in. Okay, and that is such a powerful place to be as a leader. So when did listening to another person, again, a core competency with coaches, active listening, deep listening, when did I listen well enough so that my communication becomes more effective? And as per research, listening is 85% of the communication. And this is where we as coaches or individuals, and this is not only in the coaching profession, even in your personal relationships, many relationships are not deep enough because what is missing is listening. And when you listen well, you are doing a lot more communication when you're speaking. And that's where you're compassionate. And then comes engagement. What are the kind of words and phrases you are using? How honest are you to your feelings being expressed with your choice of words? And this is where the E falls in place. So it's vulnerability, objectivity, coming across as informed, compassion, and engagement. So this is the voice framework at the second level of leadership that I deal with my clients.
Wow. I mean, definitely every letter in that is very, very loaded and very critical. And I think you explained it really well. I'm going to pause for a moment and just ask anybody in the audience if they have any questions. Otherwise, we'll move forward. But anybody who's heard the voice framework, any questions from anyone?
There's a question in the chat, Priya. It says, as a meditator, last 47 years, I see inner quiet place, out in outer calm, as a leader. And one can stay detached and attached as needed. Thoughts, a question mark.
Yes.
So if you would like to unmute yourself, if you need some clarity, please unmute and speak out. Cherian.
Hi, Rashmi. How are you?
I'm good, Cherian. Good to see you. Hi.
Yeah, so talking about the voice part of it. So I was just wondering in terms of quite often, our voice is as excitable or as calm as we are inside, right?
Yeah.
So as coaches and as, people practicing meditation, how do you see the inner calm actually playing out in the confidence and calm which a leader communicates externally? That was my question, actually.
Okay. And this is where these exercises that I shared, Cherian, like Brahmari, can help. And more than anything else, just taking a deep breath before you get into a presentation or a meeting, couple of deep breaths, and then exhaling, holding it. So you have the box breathing, which is a very popular method many people use. You'd inhale, hold it 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, hold that space 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's like a box that you are doing. Doing these exercises helps you remain in a calm space. So since you meditate and last 4 decades is quite a beautiful space that you are in as a coach yourself. So when you're talking about calmness, meditation is one of the most powerful techniques to build that. And since you already have it, you as an individual, when you get into a space of communication, do this before you get into any communication with anyone. As long as you are in a calm space, it gets reflected in your coaching conversation. So many a time, like when the coachee is speaking to you, you can see the solution right there. And because the person is invested emotionally, the person cannot see what you can see because you're objective. And that is where the detached attachment needs to come in. So this ability to hold back is our biggest challenge. And when you are somebody who's in that calm space, you're not in a hurry to prove anything. So these concepts of detached attachment and doing these breathing exercises help you handle yourself in the emotional highs and lows during a conversation or a situation in life itself.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Fabulous. Um, Super framework, I must say. Definitely helps break it down and helps make sense of how we could actually use it. I wanted to ask if you had any, real life examples of how somebody has some coachee, some client maybe that you have encountered, a real life situation where you saw this play out in practice, just to give us a flavor of how we could also adopt this into our everyday or our coaching as well.
Okay. Priya, I remember a time when it was a very senior coach, and this goes for Anu's first question as well, where she was a senior coach herself, and this was during the pandemic. She had signed up for this coaching, and suddenly, when I was asking her to do something, I said, expand yourself and put yourself together this way and say what you're saying. And as she was doing the exercise, she suddenly burst out crying. And this is virtual. So this is where the pause, space, silence tool was something that I really understood, and the vulnerability aspect. Okay. So clients sometimes, when they trust the space, they just become vulnerable. So and this was her breakdown. When she burst out crying, now if your client is in front of you, maybe you can hold her hand or put a hand on her shoulder. But in this case, virtually, you can't do anything. And for me also, this was the first time somebody had such a big burst of tears. So what I did was held myself together, because that's when I realized I needed to take care of this situation, because she's most vulnerable. So I should not react. And this is when I just kept quiet and I didn't say a word and allowed her to cry. After a point, she stopped and she said, Rashmi, this is nothing to do with the process, but something that I had kept hidden and I didn't even realize. And she's one of the most successful coaches, very good in expression, very confident. And she said, just the fact that you told me expand, because she was constricting herself while she was speaking. I told her, just broaden yourself a little bit and expand this space, and you'll notice how much more powerful you can be. She said, when I just did that much, it took me to a space of freedom. I realized how much I was holding back. As a little girl, I was constantly reminded that you are a girl, don't sit taking a lot of space, take less space, constrict yourself. And when you asked me to expand physically right now, it was 60 plus years of constriction that suddenly felt like a release. And that is what I cried at now, realizing how liberating this is. So anybody looking at her would never say that she comes from a space where she was asked to constrict all through her childhood. So that's why, Anu, I said that sometimes it's not the now, it's a past that has stayed with you, and therefore you could not express yourself. Where at that one moment, it was one of the most liberating moments for her. And what eventually happened is, that's again for me a reaffirmation of breakdowns being breakthroughs, because she found herself so beautifully through the rest of the sessions that she ended up becoming an ambassador for me. And she went on, like I have not big time marketed my coaching. It is just the word of the coaches who have experienced it, who have gone around recommending me. And she was one of the first ones who gave me a very big client because of what she went through. So at that time, she had understood how much she had held within herself. So sometimes just being vulnerable helps both you and the coachee. And that's where these tools of pause, space, especially silence. We are so tempted, but it can be such a powerful tool. It's such an underrated tool in coaching conversations, but it can be your biggest tool where you just allow your coachee to be who he or she is. Because at that moment, that trust that builds is something that words cannot describe. It's an experience. And for me, that remains, and this was way, way, way early in my coaching journey. So, and that is where it reaffirmed for me that the voice is something which is just beyond what we hear. There is a deeper voice within, like Cherian just asked, that connect is with that voice in me. That's why my hashtag in my LinkedIn post is always voice in me, because the moment we get connected to that inner voice that is constantly holding us together and allowing us to be who we have to be, we are in that space of balance through our lives.
Fabulous. Very, very helpful. Very beautifully put, actually. And the example you shared as well just brings to life how the voice framework has been used. Vulnerability is such a core part of it. And I think something that we can also find ways to incorporate in, for our own selves, but also for our coaches. I'm going to just go a little off topic here and just ask you, in your experience with the clients that you deal with and using this voice framework, do you see a difference when you're talking to women leaders versus male leaders in terms of how they would adopt the voice framework, or would you tweak anything for them? Have you ever seen any differences? Because there tend to be different ways in which they approach leadership, I would think. Any thoughts on that?
Ironically, no.
Amazing. That itself is a great testament to say that we're all this, like, everyone
We are
has
the
the same
same.
issues.
When it comes to expression, the same challenges that women have in rooms, I have seen a lot of men have as well. I think leadership after a certain stage is gender agnostic. Okay. It's your energies, the male and the feminine energies that show up in the room. And it first of all, when I started this voice framework, and that I'm before it got into 3 levels and went deep and all that stuff, I set out on this journey as a coach for women finding their voice, because I noticed in Zoom sessions, when you're in breakout rooms, women are so expressive, so happy to say what they want to say. In the main session, they're just silent. Okay, so I thought maybe they need some prodding. And that's how my journey with voice began. And because all of us work with English frameworks, I thought I'll give it an Indian name. And my journey was called Vani. Okay, Vani in Sanskrit is all about speech. So that's how my journey with women leaders, and I still have the program for women, it's called Vani. And that's when a lot of my male friends got in touch saying it's so unfair. You think men don't need help? Why don't you start one for us as well? And that's where the selfie program began. Selfie was more looking into yourself, your internal self. And that's where I went deeper into 3 levels and stuff like that. My corporate program, coaching program is also called Selfie. But I was surprised myself, because we always think men are way more confident, blah, blah, blah. But when they come into the coaching room, both are similar. And that is when I found my answer that in leadership, it's not gender. It's what you bring into the room as a leader. And there's no tweaking for either. There is nothing that the whole purpose of keeping these coaching sessions one-on-one is each one's ask is very different as part of the coaching journey. And that's why I don't do group sessions. It's one-on-one.
Fabulous. I think we're in the last few minutes of the session. I'm just going to try and assimilate all the things that you've given us today to use. I think we started with standing in front of the mirror and speaking. We did the Brahmari exercise, which is, I think, two very tangible things to do. We have the whole pause, space, silence framework to work with, which I think is my new thing of definition of confidence and, the mantra for confidence. The voice framework, which is vulnerability, objectivity, informed, compassion, engagement. all of this coming together to make a powerful impact. And we spoke about detached attachment as well. Love it. I mean, there's so much to work with. I hope everyone's enjoyed the session. We don't have time for more questions, but Rashmi, I'd love if you could end with the story that you was telling me about, the Veda story of the name Akashvani. I just loved that when you had mentioned it earlier. I'd love for you to share it with everybody.
Yeah, it was only on reflection I realized this, Priya, that when you go back to the Vedas, the Upanishads, most of it was not written down. Most of the shlokas, even the Gayatri mantra that we recite now, have all come through an Akashvani. Okay. And the best English translation for that can be a celestial voice. And most of the rishis who wrote those gave it orally, and then it was written down later and stuff like that. So the Akashvani was such a big metaphor in my life, because I started realizing now on reflection that I found mine through Akashvani, which is All India Radio that I worked at. Those 10 years at Akashvani helped me find my voice and helped me connect to who I truly was, because that made a difference with how I completely accepted myself. When I today stand in front of an audience, it doesn't matter who is in front of me, I am who I am. So for me, Akashvani became the biggest metaphor of my life, because when I went back and saw the Vedas and the Upanishads and how they got those mantras to how I'm connected to that powerful word, Akashvani, I realized I found my purpose. So that has been the wonderful way life has blessed me.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I mean, very, very enriching and enlightening conversation. Lovely to have spoken to you. I hope everyone had a great session. Some good comments are coming in. But thank you, everyone. We'll wind up right on time at 5 p.m. Rashmi, really a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya. You've been a wonderful host, and thanks for all your questions. Anu, Cherian, you set the tone right for us to move. Thank you very much, everyone, and God bless. Have a wonderful 2026.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmi.
Thank you.
And thank
Thank
you,
you,
Priya.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Well, this was definitely a power-packed session. I took the space that Rashmi invited us to take, and I feel a difference in my aura for myself. And it's a great reminder that sometimes what we don't say carries as much meaning as what we are not saying, words and the unsaid words. So I invite you all to reflect and reclaim your throat chakra. And with that, there's another amazing session coming up for you right now. As we move into the third eye chakra, the Anya chakra, we explore intuition, foresight, and clarity beyond logic. I think throughout the day, we've been breaking up all logics that we have constrained around us. In this session, Vikram Mal invites us to reflect on intuitive leadership and strategic vision, to anchor the conversation and build the bridge between spiritual awareness and real world leadership practices. I warmly welcome Snigdha, an executive coach, facilitator, and former CHRO with over 2 decades of experience helping leaders navigate change, pressure, and identity shifts with clarity and confidence. Her work blends strategic HR depth with emotional intelligence, coaching, enabling leaders to access resilience, presence, and intentional action. Snigdha will help us to frame the exploration, hold the space, and guide the audience as Vikram Mal deepens the journey into awakening intuitive intelligence and foresightedness. Over to you, Snigdha.
Thank you, Shiba. I'm personally very excited for this session myself, but let me take a minute to introduce Vikram first. Vikram is a leadership facilitator, a coach, a therapist with more than 30 years of experience and working across 25 countries. His path started from being a farmer to a creativity educator, to a global L&D specialist, and he has shaped his ability to help leaders see beneath the surface, where the real shift begins. He's also deeply trained in Gestalt, transactional analysis, compassionate inquiry, yoga, and multiple behavioral sciences. Vikram combines intuition with clear eye observation. His hallmark is naming what others sense but cannot articulate, making blind spots visible, patterns obvious, and inner truth accessible. Also, structuring his time in this space has allowed him to pursue scuba, horse riding, vipassana, rafting, paragliding, besides his professional journey, and he also does pro bono counseling for various segments of the society. Today's session, which is on intuitive leadership, unlocking vision and strategic foresight through the third eye chakra, Vikram will talk about that in detail. We will look forward to him understanding how the inner eye operates in leadership, how intuition, clarity, and insight emerge when we learn to quieten the noise and recognize the inner signals and trust the intelligence beyond logic. With that said, I will now invite Vikram to talk a little bit about the history of the chakras and then move on to what's the Anya chakra.
Thank you very much, Snigdha. Thank you very much, Shiva. And that was a very powerful conversation, Rashmi. I thoroughly enjoyed that, if you are still there. And I have a personal ask of the group. I don't have the training that Rashmi has. So if you would be kind enough to switch on your videos, I would welcome that, because I'm not used to, speaking into a mic. Thank you.
Guys, can we all come and be present here in the moment?
I intend to make it, more spontaneous and inclusive. So whoever is ready to switch on their videos, that'll be a pleasure.
If not, Vikram, you can multiply all of us 100 times and imagine we are here.
All right, thank you, whoever has switched on. I have another question. Is everyone okay? Okay, I see somebody, Francine. How many people are not okay with Hindi? If you can just put it in the chat.
There are no responses, so I'm assuming everyone is comfortable.
All right, so I am going to switch and be bilingual. I belong to Eastern UP, a criminal city called Gorakhpur. And so I speak Hindi and English, as I'm told, fairly equally well. I'd like to get into a little bit of history about the chakras. And this may ruffle a lot of your beliefs and feathers. So the first person who, from the Western world, C.W. Leadbeater, who was the person who found Krishnamurti on a beach and later had joined Annie Besant in the Theosophical Society, wrote a book called The Chakra. And before he wrote the book, he had been practicing Western occult and Neo-Christianism, and that influenced a lot of his work. Then it got picked up by a lady called Anno Dear Judith, who wrote a very popular book which became very popular in the West, which is called The Wheels of Life, and started making the chakras look descriptive, that this is the base chakra and this is the second chakra, third chakra, fourth chakra, etc. And then comes along a gentleman called Christopher Hill, who wrote a book called Nuclear Evolution, who started describing each chakra with aromatherapy, colors, etc., etc. Somewhere in the 1500s, a gentleman called Purnanand Yati had written a book called Shat Chakra Nirupan, where the original 112 shloks that Shiva recites to Shakti in the Vigyan, which is, in the Kashmiri Vigyan Bhairav, and where the source of, some people say 108 and some people say 112, Some people say 114. The 112 shloks that were recited to Shakti by Shiv, being the first known talk on what is awareness, what is consciousness, and that got formulated later into the Chakra Gyan. Now, here is a very big difference I would like to point out to all of you. The original books talk about the 112 points, 72,000 nadi points, reduced to 112 manifestations that you can place anywhere in the body. But when the Western interpreters came, as you know, there is a huge difference between Western understanding, which requires a step-by-step process, and Eastern philosophies, which are okay with ambiguity. It got reduced to 7. As I know right now, there are only 2 people who work with that original stuff. One is Sadhguru. I'm not his follower. I have not read anything about him. This is something I know because I actively research some of these things. And I was led into this by my guru at the Bihar School of Yoga way back in 2010. And that's how I realized that, oh, there is a whole difference between the traditional approach and what we know as the 7 chakras. Then there is another gentleman called Amit Ray. If some of you are taking notes, you can. I would encourage you to take notes because I'll be sharing quite a few things which are going to be important. Amit Ray goes into the details of the 112 elements of the Vigyan Bhairav and how they tie up with the chakras. Now, this is not to negate anyone's practice of the 7 chakras. All knowledge evolves, practices evolve, and if the intention behind the practice is true to yourself, then the 7 steps is a very good way to move deeper into your own understanding of yourself. I hope that settles well with you. Any questions so far? चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं। हमारा मानना है कि यदि कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है तो हम इस इल्यूजन में रहते हैं कि आपको सब कुछ समझ में आ रहा है। ठीक है, बढ़िया। सवाल नहीं है तो
या कुछ भी नहीं आ रहा है।
नहीं आ रहा है।
Both possibilities coexist.
Yeah, definitely. There are too many parallel universes running all over the place. I would encourage you to read an author called Arthur Avalon. Arthur Avalon. And I will put it in the chat. This was his pen name. His real name was Sir John Woodroffe. He was, at the time, the British were ruling India, and he had some mystical experiences, and he went into studying spirituality. He was the Chief Justice for the British in Calcutta, and he had some very mystical experiences, and he wrote parallelly, different from the stuff that I've told you about, on a lot of Hindu practices, both mystical and Kashmiri, Shaivite, and later many, many more things. And for people like me who don't understand Sanskrit, he's a very, very powerful author to read. Vigyan Bhairav has a lot of interpretations. If some of you are interested, it is a fantastic read. You have a lot of publications from India who have published Vigyan Bhairav, and I will remember some of the publishers. One is Motilal Banarsidass, so you can look up Vigyan Bhairav from Motilal Banarsidass, and it will take you very deep into some of the understandings of the stuff I've been talking about. Now, I would like to share Just give me a moment, sorry. So I am now working with what is evolved as the 7 chakras. And I am definitely talking about the Ajna chakra or the Agya chakra, which is somewhere in between your eyebrows. And it is represented normally by 2-petal lotus with an inverted triangle and an Om in between. Now, what does all this imply? The 2 petals show the distribution of the brain. You have the left hemisphere, you have the right hemisphere, and in between you have the corpus callosum, which is where all the electrical wires connect the left and right. The inverted triangle, as you see, is bringing the left and right together, which I will expand on a little later, where we are talking of the Ida and the Pingla, and which when combined and worked well together leads you to the Shushumna Nadi. Yeah. I have a question for the participants. What to you is the difference between intuition and overthinking? It'll be lovely to hear voices, or you can put it in a chat. The 6th chakra looks after intuition. It looks after strategy. It looks after clarity of thought. It looks after bringing the 2 sides together. And the most common thing that I get asked is, what is the difference between intuition, spontaneity, and overthinking? So I'd like to hear that there are seasoned people in the audience, in the participants. So some voices, some thoughts.
If I can.
Yeah, please, Nidha.
I think intuition for me is the first thing that comes to me as a thought or a reaction, or sometimes something happens and your intuition tells you, go this way, do this thing. It's instinctive. You don't have to think about it. It's what's the first thing that comes to you. I think the more you start to analyze it and think what is the right, wrong, what could possibly could be the repercussion. And when you start putting logic to it and add your experience and brains to it, which is when it becomes overthinking. Especially when that goes on to an extent where you think much more than you really need to. So intuition is very spontaneous in my mind, and
Yeah.
overthinking comes with a much deeper conversation with yourself.
That's lovely. You're spot on. Thank you. And I will build on what you're saying once I hear some more people. Yeah. Anuradha, please.
Yeah, so I think intuition is something which just happens. Like when we are troubled by any problem or something, and no solution is, like, we can't think of any solution, and if we just sleep over the problem, and we just let the subconscious work while we are not consciously trying to struggle with lot of yes, no, and these kind of things. So it's more like a gut feeling kind of a thing where something just pops up once you have slept over the problem. So it is a very natural thing which maybe comes from a deep, from something deep within you. It's not based on any logic or anything. It's just that at the spur of the moment, you suddenly feel that this is the ultimate thing that you should go for. So it's more of your inner call kind of a thing. And overthinking is something completely different. It is just brooding about a situation, a problem, a person, uh, without any without any sense, I would say. Just going round and round in a circle. It's a kind of a vicious circle, and it's difficult to come out of it if you get entangled into that circle. So that is my
Very well put across, Anuradha. Thank you so much. So something which is not necessarily sequential, logical, and is different from the loop kind of thinking. Yeah. Very well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Priya, please.
I'll just try and articulate it differently. Intuition is a whisper,
Mhm.
and overthinking is very loud. in my mind. I mean, when I'm overthinking and the repetitive, the loop that everybody mentioned. So because it's so repetitive and there's a pattern that you're going on, which doesn't lead to anything productive, it's very loud. The voice is very loud, whereas an intuition comes softly. It's more internal, and you actually need to quieten the voices to hear the intuition, in my experience.
Very good. Very good. There is the softness and the loudness, and there is also some of those things that Rashmi had mentioned, the pace, and, is it just rolling into each other? Is there a silence? Is there a pause? So all those things, yeah. Because none of the chakras work in isolation, yeah. They're all interconnected. It's a systemic look at things, yeah. Unlike a lot of Western medicine where the eye doctor doesn't know what the ENT is doing, the ENT does not know what the throat, what the lung guy is doing, etc., etc. Yeah. Yes, Shiba, please.
I just wanted to share when you asked the difference between instinct and intuition, there's only one imagery that immediately came to my mind, which is the instinct of a mother. I think instinct is what helps us survive. It is just our default mechanism from our older brain. And intuition is the wisdom that we have accumulated through our experiences that may not have, as Anuradha was saying, logic or loop, but it does guide us to make decisions that allow us to live in our space.
Thank you. That's very well put, Shiva. Anybody else? If you'd like to put some comments in the chat. All right.
Also, Vikram, just a quick one. If you're referring to slides, you could put it in slide share mode so that the audience can also see it and visually connect, if you would like that.
You were not able to see it, is that?
No, earlier we were just listening to you and watching you, but you can use
sorry.
No, there was a slide up there. It's just a much smaller view, so it wasn't very clear.
What do I need to do with that?
Just while you're sharing your screen in your presentation, just go to the presentation mode, which is at the bottom right corner. So it expands the whole thing.
Yes, we can see it now. Perfect.
Yeah, this one, the presentation mode. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Perfect.
All right. So, what is now believed in and how it is practiced are some of the things which you may already know about, and I'm going to visit them with you. Ajna meaning command, strategy, perception, intuition, beyond wisdom. The location is the center of the forehead, slightly above the space between the eyebrows. The color assigned to it is indigo. It represents, again, intuition, spirit, the physicality of the 5 Mahabhutas as explained in some of the texts. Element is light, and the mantra seed sound is Om. Now, while I was growing up, I had no clue that the Om sound had 3 syllables to it. I was taught it was Om, and I also used to do Om. It is A, O, and Ma. Now, here is something you've been doing all your life, and I will bring it to your awareness. We as human beings cannot make any sound in the in-breath. I would like you to slowly take an in-breath and call your own name. And let me know if you can call your own name. It is just not possible. Yeah. The only thing that you may be able to make is a guttural sound like something like that. Yeah. Nothing else. Okay. Or if you are someone who has trained yourself to laugh in the inward breath like that, so you may be able to do that. And those kind of sounds happen when you are very moved with sadness or panic, etc. But to formulate a word in the in-breath is next to impossible. Whatever we speak is in the out breath. And so the practice of Shatkarm, which is the cleanses, I will be talking about that. Something Rashmi has spoken about, Hariharan had spoken about it in the morning, about the diet and everything. And Ankur had approached it when he was talking about the Anahat through his fantastic talk about fear and how to approach fear and, to bring experiential knowledge and things like that. So I will be taking you through some of the tools rather than spend too much of time, because these are things you can easily get right across, today AI, Perplexity and Ask Gemini and the whole lot, even WhatsApp for that matter. I will come to how to pronounce it correctly, as I have been taught in a little bit. The two petals, logic, reason, in the Greek thing, logos, mythos, in the Indian, Hindu and yoga philosophies, Ida and Pingla, and the two coming together, which is the balanced, neutral part, which is the Shushumna Nadi. And we will talk about that. And like I mentioned, the inverted triangle is the inside of the lotus, the downward facing triangle, symbolizing the descent of the combination of the left and right into what is called the divine wisdom into the human mind. A lot of things are assigned, like the throat is assigned to thyroid, the sixth chakra, the third eye chakra is the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and definitely the brain. What are the practical practices and what are the oversights? I am more interested in talking about that with you once I'm done with this brief presentation. When it is working well, there is the strong intuition. You trust your gut. And what it is, we will see in a bit, as opposed to overthinking. Mental clarity. The ability to visualize. Something that Ankur had spoken about in detail. Intent to action. And non-attachment, which Rashmi spoke about beautifully. And one of the participants, I forget his name, he also had written something about choosing to be attached and detached, and I found that very powerful. So we will look at that. Now here is something I picked up from the web, intuition versus anxiety as far as the Ajna or the Agya or the third eye chakra is called. At the physical level, intuition is a sense of expansion, relaxation, or like, I'm sorry, who was the person there? Said it is a whisper or a steady, quiet nudge. It doesn't scream for attention. Anuradha had spoken about this. It's not loud, etc. Anxiety is always a contraction, and you will sense it in the body as opposed to relaxation. You will rock your feet, or you will tap your fingers, or you will breathe hard. All that is anxiety, and it is a looped kind of thinking. Time orientation, it is rooted in the present. And this is where a very big distinction is. Overthinking anxiety is always obsessed worrying about the future. Rashmi had touched upon this, and very well. So I will not spend too much of time on this. Emotional tone is neutral and detached. Here it is charged with fear, panic, outcome, need for control, need for validation, reassurance. And that's what are the biggest differences. The other thing is, intuition never asks for validation. You don't go seeking it from 5 people and say, हमने ये सोचा था, कैसा लग रहा है तुमको? तुम क्या सोचती हो इसके बारे में? It doesn't demand that. You know there is a truth there. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I'm in my sister's place and she loves dim lights. So That's how it is. I can figure out I'm looking dark. You can't see my beautiful bald head as compared to my bearded face. They're both looking the same to me. Now, because people have a lot of faith in what is an overactive and what is a blocked chakra, so I will spend a few minutes here. A blocked relies, which Anuradha had mentioned very well, relies on logic a lot. Overactive totally ignores logic. And that is not spontaneity. Please don't misunderstand the two. Yeah. You are unable to visualize. Overactive is you are constantly caught up in daydreams, fantasy, and you do not know how to turn that into reality. Okay. And we see a lot of managers facing that. We see a lot of mid-management undergoing, this very, as it says in the third one, foggy, abrupt, sharp, abusive, violent in speech kind of things happening. Overactive. So when it is blocked, you will tend to shun people away, like say, यार अभी छोड़ो यार, बाद में बात करते हैं. हाँ, अभी टाइम नहीं है. देख रही नहीं हो हम कितने busy हैं. Those kind of things. When it is overactive, you might have heard a lot from people, I have piercing migraines, I'm not able to function. And that is what overactive Ajna Chakra is all about. And there is a constant pressure around your eyes, your cheeks, your head, your temples, and maybe even equalization problems in your ears. Mood is cynical, depressed, stuck. Here it is anxious, paranoid, manic. Now I'm done with the understanding of what is popular in belief about the sixth chakra. I would like to draw attention to how do you work with this? How many of you are regular practitioners of pranayama? Because the original texts talk about, if you could just put it in the chat, that'll be lovely. I will answer that, Shiba. I'm sorry, I missed your message. Yes, I will come to that. Yeah, that was the comment by Cherry, and I think, thank you so much for that, Abhigya. Not very regular. What do you mean by that, Anuradha? Acha, you are not a very regular practitioner. All right. Thank you.
Pranayam that you are talking about.
Yeah. Now, here are some things I would like to share from my practices. I started practicing yoga when I was 9. I started reading up. I practiced some of the advanced things like putting pipes in my nose and eating up cloth as dhoti and putting pipes down my throat. And so I'm speaking to you from experiential understanding and having been through the pain of getting these things right. Yeah. And having in the process of getting it right and comfortable, wanting to run away from it many a times because the throat bleeds, the nostrils bleed. It's a very difficult thing to put, the original threads into your nostrils and work with it, and the pipe is easy, etc., etc. Now, here is something which you are aware of, and I would like to go into the depth of what I know, and I hopefully you will benefit from this sharing. The right brain controls the left part of the body, and the left part of the brain controls the right part of the body. Is everyone in tune with that? Okay. If you could just give me a thumbs up so I know that, thank you. You are there. All right. Now you have heard about Anulom Vilom. The id is your which nostril, the left or the right? Are pronounced as ida also.
I think the left one.
Okay. So the breath is going to your left lung, which is controlled by the right part of your brain. Right? Now, when you're doing a lot of left nostril breathing, you are cooling your system down. And you are activating right brain properties, which is music and intuition and expression and art and relationship, etc. It is winters for a lot of people in the north. And here is where the Pingla comes into play, which is the right nostril or the Surya Nadi. Yeah. So you are activating the right one. The whole purpose of the third eye chakra is to bring balance. Something I had shared with Snigdha and Shiva when we were getting to know each other. Some of you who are practitioners will have noticed that both your nostrils don't flow equally well most of the day. Yeah. If you are a light sleeper, you will notice that आप यदि बाएं करवट लेते हैं तो आपकी दाहिनी नॉस्ट्रिल जो है वो खुली रहेगी, नीचे वाली क्योंकि आप बाएं लेटे हैं तो नीचे वाली बंद हो जाएगी, और आप जैसे ही करवट बदलेंगे 2-3 मिनट के अंदर it will change, the flow will change. Yeah. Now here is a very interesting thing I learned. You know the Yog Dand you have seen in movies and serials and all, you know, a half moon thing with a stick at the bottom and they have their hand on it and they are doing mantra jap. Well, that's the secondary purpose of it. The primary purpose of it was to put it under your armpit. Now, please listen to this very carefully. If your right nostril is blocked, that Yog Dand, yeah, was to be placed under your left armpit. Now, you obviously may not have a Yog Dand. So a very good thing to do is take a thick book and place it there. Or roll a towel and place it there. And please be patient. Yeah. It will take 2 to 7 minutes, depending on a variety of physiological reasons. It is my guarantee. You don't have to believe me. Practice it and see the truth for yourself. Your clogged nostril, whichever it is, so you have to use the opposite armpit, will open up within 2 to 7 minutes. And that is where you can have a balanced pranayama. Right?
Vikram, I have a
In
question.
the morning, I had spoken about, yes, Snigdha, please.
Sorry to interrupt. So, but at what point of time do you figure out that this is one nostril is, blocked or the nostril? When I'm normally breathing,
try
I
it now.
can't feel that.
You can try it now. One will be a little more labored than the other.
So if I were to block
Yes.
it and then
You
I
have to
can check
close.
which one is a little bit labored. Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to draw true benefits from it, I will be talking about the Shatkarm in a little while. Yeah, I'll go through that. So Anulom Vilom has 3 practices to it. In through left, out through left. Then after you've done a few of them, in through right, out through right. The second step is in through the left, out through the right. And continue that. In through the left, out through the right. After you've done 5, 6 of them, you take in through the right. Out through the right.
I think someone has their mic unmuted.
Rashmi Kant Tare, please kindly mute. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the third, which is very popular, is in through the left, out through the right, and then in through the right, out through the left. Now you have a variety of variations in this. Like Rashmi was also talking about, you can do the kumbhak, which is the stop. And please remember, your in-breath is always shorter than your out-breath. And she did speak about nitric oxide release. So the longer your out-breath, the longer your out breath, the more releases you have, both at the emotional level, at the intellectual level, and at any trauma that you may have accumulated. So the idea is to slow down, yeah, and make it as slow as possible. The second one that Rashmi already spoke about is the Brahmari. The Brahmari obviously does not only work on the throat, it works all around your headspace. And she beautifully explained that you don't have to go into closing your eyes and your nostrils and your mouth. The best thing is to just plug your ears and do a loud Brahmari. Now, here is something, a detail that I would like to share with you. Your jaw, your teeth must not be joined when you are doing Brahmari. And the tongue must touch the tip of your palate where आपका तलवा जो है meets your teeth. So if this is the juncture where your teeth are and this is the talwa, your tongue should be here. And Steve Porges, in his polyvagal theory and practices, where he talks, is one of the few Western people who talks very highly of yoga and pranayam, talks about the benefits of Brahmari. Polyvagal theory is his thing. He has done immense research on it. He landed on that accidentally. And very grounded person, fantastic work. You may want to read about that. Now, there are the Shatkarm practices which work throughout all the 7 channels. I'm sure you've heard of Neti. Yeah. And so Neti, if you can practice it with water itself on a daily basis, and most of us living in NCR, it's a fantastic daily practice. Already pointed out by Rashmi in the previous talk. No food, no drink. You can do it in the evening also. And just remember to do Kapal Bhati rigorously after that. The water must not remain inside. Yeah. There is also something, if you're taking notes, I would encourage you to do at least once a month. It is called Laghu Shank Prakshalin. Instead of doing some very expensive colon cleanse, go for a Laghu Shank Prakshalin. It cleanses your solar plexus chakra, your stomach, etc., which also enhances the quality of your thinking and your ability to do pranayama. Once a month is very good. If you travel, twice a month is exceptionally good. Kapal Bhati is very popular, and Hariharan said beautifully that please do not do it fast. It is not something you need to do fast. Ramdev was very young. He had been practicing yoga for all his life. When he came, he was in his 20s, and he was doing it so fast that it led a lot of people to develop, high blood pressure and a whole lot of other side effects because he was trained in it. So it's like wanting to do a split on day 1. So please don't do it very fast. Very good pace, if you can see me, is just to go this way, which is, that's a very good pace to start with. Do 30, take a deep breath, take 2-3 deep breaths, start again. Take 2-3 deep breaths after 30 again. Aim for 90 in the beginning, and then you can expand it to 300 if you feel like that's okay. The most available one for people in the corporate world is Tratak. A lot of you would have heard about it. It is the candlelight meditation. If you don't have a candlelight, and candles can be difficult to carry, you can focus on any one bindu or a dot. And Tratak is a cleanser of the third eye chakra. If you can start with 7 to 10 minutes, and the idea is, please remember one thing, unless you have practiced it for about 3 to 4 months regularly, you may not see tangible benefits. Yeah. Any of these practices requires a sustained practice over a period of time. Just like we can't go to a gym for 3 days and expect muscles to be built or to have lost weight, etc. Similarly, with all these practices, you need to give it a dedicated, disciplined amount of time. Yeah. Now, Yes, absolutely, Shiba. There is, if you're doing it very fast, and if you're doing it, after a meal, you're not watching what you are eating, etc., then it is a problem. Okay. I guarantee you from personal experiences, doing it over a sustained period of time, you will be able to see assimilation of your left and right nadis coming to the center, being able to be calm, and to be able to hold conversations with poise, with pace, with pauses, like spoken about in the earlier session. The other one which is overlooked is the eye movements. Yeah. Now here is something which is very peculiarly interesting about eye movements. There's a whole theory in the West called the EMDR. Yeah, some of you might have come across it, where they use eye movements to get over many years of accumulated trauma. Yoga has been talking about it. And obviously, EMDR has built their own resources around it, and which is brilliant. One of the good things to do before a practice for the eye movements is to take some water in your mouth, blow up your cheeks, and then splash cold water 20, 30 times before doing eye exercises. The very general ones are left to right, diagonal, up and down, clockwise, anti-clockwise. And the one is to hold a pencil in front of you, bring it slowly towards yourself, and keep staring at it and take it back. All
What is
these,
the purpose of doing all of these eye exercises?
unknown to you, at your subconscious level, you are releasing a lot of your trauma also.
Okay.
Right? And the third one, which doesn't get talked about much, is the Sim Garjan Asana. So while you will sense it at the throat level, because you are bellowing, you are making a roar like a lion. The eyes are supposed to focus on the third eye. Yeah. So it's a combination of the throat chakra and the Ajna chakra. And because you are taking the sound out, and I'm not in the posture, but the sound has to be loud. So you stick your tongue out, you look up, and you go really loud, yeah, which is like that, yeah. And years of your accumulated stuff, which is negative, dysfunctional, over a period of sustained practice, you will see yourself settling down, becoming calmer, becoming more holistic in your vision. Please remember, you cannot overthink your way out of problems. You cannot think your way out of problems. You have to bring in practices. Yeah, and practices have to be sustained over a certain period of time. Right? And social media, like any other resource, can be used, misused, or abused. मैं यहाँ पे एक छोटा सा किस्सा सुनाना चाहूँगा. मेरे नाना बहुत बड़े जमींदार थे. तो मैं बोर्डिंग स्कूल में था in this city called Dehradun from the age of 5. So kabhi kabhar I used to go back. My father was a tea planter in Assam. So sometimes I would visit Gorakhpur, which is my hometown. And in one of those visits, I noticed that when relatives would get together, there would be drinks and they would call in the Noch girls and there would be a lot of music and dancing and all. And then somebody after the fourth peg or what, he would pick up a wad of notes and he would flick it like that on the women. Yeah. And it was a waste of a lot of resources. The beauty is, what I have noticed is, वही हरकत हम लोग आजकल फोन पे करते हैं दिन भर. Action is the same. दिन भर. And when I'm coaching and I ask people, that how much time do you really spend on social media? most people are so disillusioned about the time they spend with a half an hour. And I say, can you just go to your history? And you suddenly see 4 hours, 5 hours, and then you are wondering why you are having problems with sleep. Why are you having problems with, and I'm saying this because it is to do with the chakra we are talking about, too much of blue light and too much of screen time. It takes you away from natural visualization techniques. Yeah. So again, bringing your attention to, are you using it? Are you misusing it? Are you abusing it? Which is true for any resource we have, any faculty we have in life. I hope that answers your question, Shiba. Everything can be abused. Everything, every resource we have, every practice we have can be misused and abused. Yeah.
Vikram, while you're on this topic, if you could elaborate a little bit,
Please.
because I think this is a problem across generations right now, across people. Everybody is using their phone excessively. And while we do talk about it, it is not good, we talk about it in very general terms. But what is the real impact? What is really happening when we're constantly looking at the screen? If you could just delve a little bit more into that.
You know what? If you do wear a smartwatch, yeah, like an Apple or a Samsung or something, look at your deep sleep patterns and you will be aghast how low it is because of the time we are spending. So a very good takeaway from this session, as I would encourage you to do, is come hell or high water, make it non-negotiable to get out of TV, phone, etc. at least 2 hours before you sleep. Read a book, listen to songs, do some breathing, doing Brahmari before going to bed is also a very good practice. Yeah. Somebody was discussing having meals at 5:45, etc. I think Hariharan was talking about it in his session today. Eat early. So, no chakra works in isolation. Yeah. We are a system. Yeah. So anything that you're doing at any chakra level is going to impact other chakras in a positive or a dysfunctional way. So lack of sleep is very good. Usage of phone is very good for, the meta guys, etc., and for the psychiatric people because they are able to sell you medicines. Yeah. Now, these choices are yours. So I'm going to end this with a couple of other things because the third eye chakra is what is responsible for our anxiety. And I'd like to give you 3 very quick takeaways. Every time you become aware of your toxic part of the brain saying something dysfunctional to you, abusive to you, belittling to you, there are 3 ways I handle it. And I teach my clients. One is you can use the F word and be harsh to it and say like, F off, I see you. Yeah, bugger off. That's one way to do it. The other is more invitational. Yeah, you can say, अच्छा, फिर से आए हो, बैठ जाओ, चाय वाय पीना है तो बताओ, हमारे पास अभी टाइम नहीं है तुम्हारे लिए. Now, you may see it as a light-hearted thing, and there's a powerful understanding why I'm offering this to you. Because you are acknowledging it by saying it, and you are accepting it is there, you will see with the practice that emotion or that thought will disappear in a minute and a half. All neuroscience today, yeah. And Jill Bolte Taylor's book, The Stroke of Insight, and her TED Talks on Jill Bolte Taylor, The Stroke of Insight, she beautifully explains this, that no thought, no emotion is designed to stay for more than a minute and a half. But because we attach unnecessary meaning to it, attach unnecessary future scenarios to it, we invite anxiety and get into the loop of overthinking. So acknowledge it, accept it. And I personally think having a sense of humor is very crucial. The moment you do that, the second invitation to you is shift your body. Yeah. If you're in a free space, I call it the dog shake. Yeah. Like if some of you have pets, if you spray water on a dog, they just go like that. Yeah. So just shake it off. Yeah. And make a sound. It's important. If you are in the corporate scenario and you are mid-level, or you are talking to someone who's absolutely triggering you, yeah, one of the easiest ways to do is hold your breath for half a minute. Your entire body, your entire mind is going to be worried about the next breath, though you are listening to the person, but your judgmental mind will stop. And the last one, if you're standing and having a similar triggering conversation, stand on one leg and keep nodding your head, and you will see that emotion or that negative thought will pass away. I will encourage you to do your shatkar, do your pranayam. If you believe in the power of mantra, please do it. Yeah. Use a mala in the beginning to enhance your practice. And yeah, that's what I have to offer. And outside of this session, if you ever want to connect with me and go into more details, I'll be more than happy to have a conversation.
No,
Any
I have
questions?
made a lot of notes on what to do and what not to do, and I'm hoping that I will practice whatever I can. So while I do pranayam, I think one of my biggest takeaways, what you said, you cannot overthink your way out of problems, and that is a trap that we tend to fall into so easily. And you think you will get out of it because like you said, you will overthink it, but I think it works on the opposite. So thank you so much for sharing that. You did say there were three key things, right? One, you just tell the voice to bugger off. Second, intentionally, we make a move to make it go away. So that is something, and the practical tips are really helpful, like the standing on one leg, nodding the head, the dog shake, the making a sound, and all of that. I just feel that I'm finally equipped to take something realistic and practical back into my life. But I would like to take a minute and allow others also to see if they have any questions. I saw one question here a while back. Vikram, I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but somebody was wanting to check what would clarity look and feel like for them after this experience. And Abhigyan, if you'd like to unmute and ask this question, explain it a little bit more.
Yes, Abhigyan.
Is he still around? I can see Abhigyan, if you could just unmute yourself and ask this question a little bit detailed. What would clarity look like for you after this entire session is what you're asking? We may
There
not
is
have.
no prescriptive, 1, 2, 3, 4 this will make it look clear. It's a personal experience. What I would encourage you to is to have a regular practice. Yeah. And like I mentioned, you cannot think your way out of problems. You have to bring in new practices, which changes your thinking. Yeah. Because doing changes the being. Yeah. One more thing I would like to add is why pranayam is all the more very important today is we cannot breathe in the past. We cannot breathe in the future. We can only breathe in the present. You cannot say कि हम 10 सांस लेंगे और फिर 2 घंटा सांस नहीं लेंगे. ऐसा नहीं होता है. हाँ, क्या बोले कि कल हम बहुत दौड़े थे, फेफड़ा हमारा बहुत ऊपर नीचे हुआ, हम बहुत सांस ले लिए, अब हम 2 दिन छुट्टी लेंगे सांस लेने से. ऐसा नहीं होता है. ठीक है? So, one of the easiest ways to bring yourself into the flow of time is I don't believe in a present moment. Time is always flowing like a river. To come into the flow of existence is to have a breathing practice. Yeah. And look, whatever I may say to you, till you do not bring some of these things into practice, you may not experience what people experience because you are only at the thought level. And that is exactly what the third eye is about, is to get out of the left brain, bring in the right brain, bring in the balance and work it. Anuradha, do you have something to ask, please?
I would just like to share, it was a very inspiring session.
Thank you.
And certainly you have just again motivated me. I was not very regular with the pranayam, though I totally believe in the power of pranayam and I really love it. But due to some hectic schedule or sometimes I get lazy also, so I miss it. But definitely with your motivation, I would try to be more regular and continue with these practices. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anuradha. And I encourage you, and I hope you will be able to make it non-negotiable.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Snigdha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anuradha. If there are no questions, I have just like one final ask of you, Vikram.
Please.
So we hear a lot of things, we assimilate them, we have a lot of intention to take them away, but the reality is that the moment we'll get away from here after 2 days, we'll be like, "Acha, kuch to suna tha, like what was it? How do I bring that back?" So if there's just one thing that you could tell us, that one thing that allow us to say, "Okay, I am deviating from what I said I would," what will allow me to bring my third eye chakra? How can I focus on it? How do I start?
Okay. Lovely question. I get asked this very often. One of the ways to do it is, first is to bring the awareness that my mind is playing a trick. Yeah. And acknowledge it and say, bugger off. I'm not going to fall prey to pleasure, convenience, comfort. Yeah. And talk to it loudly and say, or you can say, बैठो, आते हैं अभी हम अपना काम करके, फिर बात करें. So it is to acknowledge that you have, I forget her name. She's a very powerful speaker. She talks about a 5-second window. Yeah.
Mel Robbins.
Mel Robbins, thank you. So she talks about it very beautifully. Yeah. So ये आप देखेंगे, आप सुबह उठते हैं, आप देखते हैं अपना फोन, बोलते हैं आज बादल बहुत है, हाँ कल जाएंगे, सो गए. हाँ बोलते आज धूप बहुत है यार, सो गए. हाँ कल 2 बजे सोए थे, सो गए. You have to make it non-negotiable. And that comes with a push. That comes by pushing. All of you who are mothers in the room, you know natural birth is given by pushing the child out. So any new practice has to be pushed for. It will not just pop out in your favor. And that's why we have so many beliefs around it. ये अंगूठी पहन लो, ये माला पहन लो, ये टीका लगा लो. यही करना होता तो हम इतना सारा ज्ञान थोड़ी दे रहे होते. हम भी टीका बाल लगाते लोगों को. ऐसे ही गंजे हैं. एक गेरुआ पहनना था, आस्था चैनल पे 2-3 अच्छी चीजें कहनी थी, और उसके बाद बस टीका टीका लगाते रहते, कुछ थोड़ा सा धन का मंडल करते, हम भी बड़ा पैसा बनाते.
But everything needs effort, practice, and consistency. That's the big thing here.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Vikram. I think that was an amazing session. There was so much to learn, nuggets to take away, practical tools to live by, and a thought that, it all will come with a push and nothing will come by overthinking. So I really appreciate this. Like I said at the beginning, I was really looking forward to it, and I'm so glad I was a part of this hosting, especially for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Snigdha. Thank you, Shiva. And thank you all the participants.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikram. There is nothing more left to say. Snigdha, thank you for holding this space and doing this dance with Vikram beautifully and bringing out all those insights that kept us hooked. And only thing I can leave people with in this moment is insight often arrives quietly. Stay open to it. And I will see you in the last chakra session in a little bit. We take a break for the moment.
Thank you.